Hello YouTube, this is Skating for Satori, and today we're going to try and answer one of the most popular and most asked questions on the Powell-Peralta Flight Deck Riders and Collectors Facebook group. And that question is, what truck should I use or will fit my Andy Anderson 9.13-inch flight deck? And will A66s fit the larger Andy Anderson board? I have to preface this by stating that the opinions shared in this video are that of a middle-aged skateboarder who started riding the skate park at the age of 42, and that the setups are for bull riding and carving, and at least for me, not set up for street, tech, or vert. My assumption is that the setups I share with you today will probably work for the aforementioned three, but I have not tested it in that type of riding, nor do I plan to. In less than 2 months, I'll be turning 50 years old. There's no way that I'm going to be trying to hit the rail or falling down a flight of stairs. In fact, at this age and point in my life, I'm just trying not to fall when walking down any staircase. The other caveat is that everyone's preferences, riding style, and setup that works for them is unique and going to be different, so this is just one perspective being shared. Looking at the various setups posted on the Flight Deck Riders and Collectors Facebook page, there are some very interesting setups on the different type of truck and wheel combinations people have used. I've seen some setups with thunders, crux, mini logo like Andy uses. I also think I saw one with a skeletal type of hanger, as well as trucks from other brands. Another observation of mine is what board owners do to equip their boards and make them very unique is the choice of wheels. And once again, this comes down to the ability of customizing one's board and assembling it and adjusting it to the terrain or style of riding and also what people prefer to ride. Some people have posted their setups with OJs, cruiser wheels, or Powell wheels such as Powell G-Slides or G-Bones. I also noticed that another group, myself included, have, for lack of a better word, a vanilla setup for their Andy Anderson board consisting of Indy or Ace trucks with either Spitfire conicals or Bones P5 shaped wheels. The type of wheels will dictate the truck and wheel setup and its fit to the board, so I'm not familiar with how those other brands of trucks and wheels fit the board or how they ride. For example, I'm not sure if an Ace 55 or 66 will fit the board with G-Slides, which are 40 millimeters wide, or G-Bones, which are even wider at 42 millimeters. But what I can share with you today is how the vanilla setup of Indy and Ace trucks in different sizes with Bones P5 wheels will fit this 9-inch board. The first example I'd like to share with you is the board fitted with A66 Trucks and Tony Hawk P5s. This was originally on a 9-inch anti-hero board, but during the COVID shelter-in-place and work from home, the Andy Anderson board and other flight decks were and continue to be impossible to find. I started riding my anti-hero again because it would be easier to replace if necessary. I also started learning how to ride switch on my 1/8 board and wanted a tighter turn, so I switched out this combination with the 55s that I'll introduce to you shortly. As you can see, the 66s with these wheels fit this board just fine. The specs on the trucks and wheels are as follows. Ace trucks size 66 have an axle width of 9.35 inches and the hanger width is 6.75 inches or 172 millimeters. These trucks are made to fit skate decks 9.12 to 9.6 inches wide, and the width of the Tony Hawk Bones P5 wheel is 34 millimeter. You might ask, well, how does it ride? I would say that for how and what I ride, which is primarily bowls, the board works out well. I did notice that the board felt heavier, but more stable. But at the same time, because the trucks were so much wider, the turn of the board didn't feel as sharp as the 55s. So the carves in the bowl seem wider and change up the angle on my lines. For example, it became very difficult and in some bowls nearly impossible to double carve the wall or corners at the speed I'm accustomed to. So a real-world analogy could be the example of comparing the wings on a fighter jet versus a passenger plane. The wings on the fighter jet are not as wide and allow the plane to be more maneuverable and turn faster and more tightly at sharper angles. The trade-off is that probably riding in a fighter jet isn't that comfortable or as stable. And on the flip side, the wings on a passenger plane, although wider and the ride more stable, it takes a lot more time and a wider angle to accomplish the turn. So for example, if both planes are flying at 500 miles per hour and you want to make a U-turn, the passenger plane with the wider wings is going to need a lot wider of a turn versus the fighter plane, which can probably turn the plane around much faster, and the arc of each plane's turn, I'm sure, is going to be very, very different. The other thing about having such a wide hangar was that it was easier to get into backside 50/50s on the coping, but because there's so much real estate on the truck, I noticed that if I was just a little bit off, didn't get into my grind correctly, or was off balance, the board would kind of shift around on the coping as if it were going to slip out. However, I think that if you are a better and more advanced skateboarder and lock into the coping using the heel side pinch point of the truck, that shouldn't be an issue. So that would be like right here, and right here, right here, and right there. The second example I'd like to share with you is the combination of the A55s with Powell-Peralta Steve Caballero 60mm wheels. The spec of the Ace Trucks size 55 is a 9-inch wide axle with a hanger that is 6.37 inches wide or 162 millimeters. This is designed to fit skate decks that are 8.5 to 9.12 inches wide depending on the wheels. I couldn't find any more data on the internet for these wheels as they are 7 years old. I got these as a gift on my 43rd birthday, but I believe they too, when new, are 34 millimeters wide. Andy's board is 9 inches wide at the axles here and in the front as well. So I think this combination works out well as far as fit. Moreover, I rode this board for about a year and a half, and I think this combination is the one that's worked out best for me, as I felt most comfortable riding the bowls at the various skate parks we visited in 2019. This ranged from our local parks such as Sunnyvale or Lake Cunningham, but also skate parks in Maui, the two Vans skate parks in Southern California, and also Etnies Skate Park. The last combination that I'll be introducing today is the Indy 159 with the P5 wheel. This particular wheel is one with a 58 millimeter diameter, which I believe is slightly narrower at 33 millimeters wide. So the wheel contact patch is going to be 1 millimeter less on each side of the board. So the delta between the combos I mentioned before on the right and this one is going to be 0.039937 inches, or the equivalent of a staples width on each side of the board. Personally, I could not notice a difference, but if you're able to notice a difference, please leave a note in the comments section below. The specs of the Indy 159 is an 8.75 inch wide axle, and the hanger width is 6.14 inches or 156 millimeters. And this is designed to fit skate decks 8.6 to 9 inches wide. This combo does indeed fit the board, and I believe that Andy Anderson rides a mini logo truck that is 8.75 inches wide. These are the trucks that I had initially set up the board with when I first got it, and I tried riding it with these Indies and Bones wheels for several weeks, but I just could not get comfortable and confident riding the board. The board is actually a very big board with a 15-inch wheelbase, but I don't know if it's just the combination or just the way I ride, as I'm a little bit heavy-footed in the front, but it didn't feel as responsive, and it just didn't seem to work well together. However, other people may have a different experience and preference. I don't own a set of Indy 169s, so I was not able to try out a setup with an axle width that is right in between the A55 and 66 trucks. So if you've ridden the flight deck with 169s and P5s, please share your experience for everyone in the comments below. In conclusion, if I were to choose a truck to ride the Powell-Peralta Andy Anderson flight deck, it would be the ACE55s. For a middle-aged skate dad riding bowls 4 to 6 times a week and doing just simple tricks like grinds and board slides, I found this truck to be the most versatile, stable, but responsive with a turning ratio and geometry that seems to work well with this board. It just turns the best for what and how I ride. I don't have the info on the specific angles of the Indy versus Ace trucks. However, I'm sure that someone has nerded out, and you can find this information out there on the internet with the specific truck measurements in millimeters and degrees of the angle of the hanger pivot, kingpin, and other things. I'm just sharing with you what I feel under my feet. Also, for all three of these trucks and setups, kingpin clearance was not an issue for me, as I only smith grind in mini bowls. With any skateboard, there's no magic formula or ultimate setup, and you're going to have to figure out what works best for you based on your riding style, what you ride, what you want to achieve on your board, your abilities, and the environment you're going to be riding. But at least through this video, you can get a visual of an apples-to-apples comparison of how two brands of popular trucks fit the Andy Anderson flight deck with the same wheels. Here in this last shot, you can see how they compare when lined up in a row, and the width difference, as well as the pinch point, where the pinch point will be on the truck relative to the board. As you can see here. And in the front. Keep in mind, you might have to experiment and see what works for you, but my advice is to try not to overthink it, spend too much time and energy modifying the equipment in the hopes of finding that magic formula for your skating, but really experimenting to find a setup that provides you with the stability and confidence when riding so that you can keep having fun on your skateboard. There's also no hard and fast rule to skateboard setups. There's no rules or regulations governing how to set up your board. There's no skate park referee that's going to call foul or pulls a yellow flag or red card on how your ride is set up or how you ride your board. Just ride. There's also no skate park sergeant like the one in Full Metal Jacket that's going to come around to inspect your board at the skate park and make you drop and push out 20 if it's not up to some kind of standard. So put together the board with a setup that you want and one that you'll enjoy riding. I'd like to leave you with 4 Hawaiian words that I've written on my skateboard as a reminder to myself each time that I have the blessing and gift to go skateboarding with my son. And they are Lealea, which is fun, Kuokoa, which is freedom, Ohana, which is family, and Aloha. So may you find and experience, receive, and give the same as you ride your skateboard. Thanks, guys.